Seeing without forgiving. Engineering of traps, cognitive sovereignty and strategic withdrawal in the era of systems that know too well. MXTM, aka Vitsu, December 18, 2025. Here is a pirate-first Substack post, tailored for the MXTM's newsletter readership. Sharp, cold, readable without call to action. A text that sees without forgiving. Not to convince you, but rather to arm with pirate-first lucidity. Not reactions but positions. Pirate first. Axis 1 Engineering of traps, seeing without forgiving. The trap is not the lie, it's the timing how institutions often tell the truth. Too late to be useful. Consent under soft pressure when coercion no longer needs police, only UX, norms and social silence. Morality as a weapon of capture, how ethics becomes a device of submission, rather than a safeguard. Axis 2 Data, clean lies and blind spots. Why statistics tell the truth and deceive anyway. Averages, cohorts, delays. Anatomy of an administratively correct truth. What surveillance systems cannot see by design. Multi-exposures, slow effects, sacrificable subgroups. Rare is not synonymous with negligible when technocracy washes its hands with percentages. Axis 3 Pirate first. Sovereignty without illusion. Ruthless is not cruel. It's precise difference between moral harshness and strategic coldness. Why pirate first does not seek to save the dupes, neither populist contempt, nor humanitarian paternalism. The third way. Sovereignty begins when one renounces being reassured against the need for a narrative that calms. Axis 4. After the pandemic, the real disaster. The post-COVID world is not sick, it is out of sync. Bodies, institutions, narratives, everything out of phase. The great causal confusion, infection, stress, injection, isolation, economy. Why blaming everything on a single thing is an error. Useful to power. What was really normalized between 2020 and 2024, not vaccines. Permanent exception. Axis 5 Strategic withdrawal. PF withdrawal protocol. Why withdrawing is sometimes more subversive than acting. The refusal to feed narrative machines. Not participating is not being passive. Chosen silence versus imposed silence. The elegance of non-alignment, neither spectacular dissidence, nor shameful obedience. Axis 6 MXTM long-term vision. When AI will inherit our blind spots, why automating a poorly understood system is a slow crime. Pirate first facing cognitive empire states, platforms, algorithmic philanthropy. What seeing clearly means in a world saturated with signals, the rarest competence of the decade. MXTM/pirate first guideline. No call to action. No forced reconciliation. No hysterical denunciation. Map. Name. Withdraw when necessary. Dictate your course. The ship is already at sea. Engineering of traps. Seeing without forgiving. We must stop believing that modern power lies as before. It has learned better than that. Today it tells the truth, but when it no longer serves any purpose. It no longer constrains frontally, it guides. It no longer censors, it moralizes. This is not a conspiracy. It is engineering. 1. The trap is not the lie, it's the timing. Contemporary institutions no longer need to massively falsify reality. They have discovered a much more elegant lever. Temporal delay. The truth arrives. After the decision. After compliance. After the costs have been individualized. When information becomes officially admitted, it is already archived, neutralized, transformed into a footnote. Yes, there were side effects. Yes, certain decisions were excessive. Yes, the data were incomplete. But after the trajectories have been locked in, after the bodies have absorbed it, after the dissidents have been disqualified, this is not a lie. It is a truth rendered inoperative. Pirate first does not ask, is it true? He asks, when is it said and who benefits at that moment? 2. Consent under soft pressure. Modern coercion no longer needs boots. It has interfaces, social norms, user journeys, diffuse penalties, well-placed silences. We no longer force. We optimize. You can refuse, but at what cost? Soft exclusion, administrative friction, moral suspicion, social cost. Everything is voluntary. Nothing is truly free. This is the triumph of UX consent. A world where saying no remains possible, but becomes a rational, uncomfortable suspect. The trap is not the obligation. The trap is transforming compliance into a reasonable choice and dissidence into social pathology. Pirate First does not rebel against the law. He refuses the scripting of choice. 3. Morality as a weapon of capture. The most effective weapon is neither fear nor force. It is instrumentalized virtue. When ethics becomes a protocol, when compassion becomes a metric, when collective responsibility serves to dissolve any individual objection, then morality ceases to protect. It captures. We no longer debate facts. We judge intentions. We no longer refute. We disqualify. The question is no longer, is it true? But, who are you to ask the question? This is where the trap closes. Contesting becomes immoral. Doubting becomes dangerous. Thinking outside the frame becomes a fault. Pirate First does not fight morality. He withdraws it from the command circuit. He knows that any ethics plugged directly into power ends up serving power, never the living. Pirate First position. Seeing without forgiving is not hating. It is not denouncing. It is not saving. It is refusing to be caught. Refusing. Late truth. Scripted choices. Conditional moralities. Not to overthrow the system. To not serve as its fuel. The trap works as long as one enters it. Through fear, hope, or virtue. Pirate First, he notes the mechanisms, adjusts his trajectory, and passes wide. The course is good. Tell yourself in the next maneuver. Axis 2 in direct continuity, same blade, other angle. Another Pirate First pronouncement for MXTM's newsletter. Clinical, readable, without call to action. Data, clean lies, and blind spots. When the truth is administratively correct. Numbers don't lie. They obey. They obey protocols, temporal windows, categories decided upstream. They say what they've been asked to say, not what should have been asked of them. Modern power loves data. Because they look neutral. Because they displace responsibility for the decision toward the method. Pirate First does not reject numbers. He reads what they cannot contain. 4. Why statistics tell the truth and deceive anyway. Statistics are an average truth. And every average is a soft violence. It erases extremes, individual trajectories, dissonant temporalities. A cohort does well, but who exactly is in the cohort? And who was excluded because they were too complex, too sick, too atypical? Delays arrange everything. Too early, there is not enough data. Too late, it is impossible to establish a link. Between the two, the decision has already passed. This is how we obtain irreproachable truths. Statistically solid. Methodologically defensible. Operationally useless for those who absorb it. 5. What surveillance systems cannot see by design. Numbers don't lie. They arrive when they no longer disturb. 5. What surveillance systems cannot see by design. Health surveillance systems are not blind. They are myopic by design. They detect well. Acute events. Massive effects. Simple signals. They structurally fail to see. Multi-exposures. Infection plus stress plus injection plus precarity. Slow, diffuse, inflammatory effects. Syndromes without clear biomarker. Subgroups too small to weigh in a global analysis. If a phenomenon affects few people, spreads over time, varies from one individual to another, then it becomes statistically phantom. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't correspond to the expected boxes. Pirate First knows this. Any system that demands simplicity to recognize suffering sacrifices the complex by default. 6. Rare is not synonymous with negligible. Rare is an administrative word. It serves to close the discussion. Rare means acceptable, manageable, compensable. But for the one who falls into the fraction of a percent, the percentage is an abstract insult. Technocracy loves small numbers. They reduce responsibility. They displace the cost toward the individual. They allow continuing without changing trajectory. Saying an event is rare is not saying it is insignificant. It is saying it is solitarily assumed. Pirate First never confuses statistical rarity and existential gravity. A system that accepts rare but irreversible damage is not neutral. It is optimized. Pirate First position. Data are not the enemy. Their fetishization is. Pirate First rejects neither science nor measurement. He refuses that they serve as moral screen, decisional alibi, political shock absorber. He knows that what is not measured is not non-existent. What is measured late is neutralized. What is rare is often abandoned. So he reads between the columns. He listens to methodological silences. And he never confuses proof of absence and absence of proof. Numbers say what they can. Pirate First watches what they let fall into the water. The compass is stable. Your turn to choose the next latitude. Axis 3, the doctrinal heart. Not a loud manifesto, an operational posture. Still for MXTM's newsletter. Pirate First, sovereignty without illusion. Not being caught, even by one's own certainties. Real sovereignty does not begin with revolt. It begins with a renunciation. Renouncing being loved. Renouncing being reassured. Renouncing saving anyone to prove to oneself that one is right. Pirate First is not a hero. It's a position. 7 Ruthless is not cruel. It's precise. Cruelty is emotional. It strikes wide. It confuses anger and clairvoyance. Ruthlessness, it is surgical. Being ruthless is not crushing. It's not diluting. Not diluting responsibilities. Not diluting words. Not diluting mechanisms under moral excuses. Moral harshness judges people. Strategic coldness observes systems. Pirate First does not hate. He disassembles. He knows that indignation is an easy fuel, and that power loves when its opponents burn too hot, too fast. Being precise is refusing. Amalgamations. Trials of intention. Moral flares that mainly serve to relieve the one who speaks. The ruthlessness of Pirate First is an economy of energy. Nothing more. 8. Why Pirate First does not seek to save the dupes. Saving the dupes is a moral temptation. It flatters the ego. Creates a role, the one who knows. But this posture hides 2 symmetrical traps. Populist contempt. They deserve their fate. Humanitarian paternalism. They don't know what's good for them. Pirate First refuses both. He does not save the dupes because capture is not an accident. It is the result of massive, repeated, refined engineering. And no one is safe ever. Saving supposes moral superiority. But sovereignty is not vertical. Pirate First shares maps, not sermons. He leaves exits open, not obligations. The one who wants to exit the trap will exit. The one who wants to remain reassured will remain. This is neither cynicism nor cold compassion. It is the most radical respect, not confiscating the trajectory of the other. 9. Sovereignty begins when one renounces being reassured. The need for a narrative that calms is the first entry point of all systems of capture. A narrative that says, everything is under control. Experts are watching. Damages are marginal. The end justifies the means, but also its mirror. Everything is conspiracy. Everything is lies. Everything is intentional. Both offer the same thing. A total explanation, therefore reassuring. Pirate First renounces that. He accepts lasting uncertainty, absence of clear conclusion, the fact that certain truths will remain fragmentary. Sovereignty is not a state of inner peace. It is a capacity to navigate without stabilizing narrative, not knowing without panicking, seeing contradictory signals without choosing the most comfortable, moving forward without moral validation. It is uncomfortable. That's why it's rare. Pirate First position. Pirate First promises nothing. He doesn't explain everything. He doesn't reassure. He observes without blinding himself, cuts without hatred, withdraws without fleeing. He knows that true domination no longer passes through force, but through narrative relief. So he does the opposite. He stays awake where others sleep standing. Sovereignty is not a flag, it's a discipline. And it always begins with this silent phrase: I can live without being told a beautiful story. The triptych is solid. Your turn to decide. When do you hoist the next sail? Axis 4, the tipping point, where many get the diagnosis wrong, and where power breathes easy, still in the MXTM/pirate first vein. Precise without anesthesia. After the pandemic, the real disaster, when everything is out of phase, we continue to talk about the post-COVID world as if it were a convalescence, as if the social body would simply find its rhythm again. But the world is not sick. It is out of sync. And this disruption does not affect one organ. It affects synchronization. 10. The post-COVID world is not sick, it is out of sync. Bodies are unwell, but not all in the same way. Institutions function, but no longer at the same tempo. Narratives exist, but no longer correspond to lived experience. Everything is out of phase. Policies react to delayed data. Health systems treat symptoms without understanding trajectories. Individuals feel diffuse troubles that no one knows how to properly name. This is not an acute crisis. It is a general desynchronization. Reality advances by fits and starts. Protocols, they advance by fixed cycles. Result: a society that still runs, but without common beat. Like an engine that doesn't explode, but wears everything faster. Pirate First does not speak of collapse. He speaks of structural disagreement between the living and the systems supposed to organize it. 11. The great causal confusion. This is where the trap closes. Faced with an out-of-sync world, the mind seeks a single cause, a fault, a culprit. So everyone simplifies. Some blame the virus, others the injection, still others stress, isolation, economy, technology. But reality is more disturbing. Everything happened at the same time. Biological infection, psychic shock, social constraint, economic discontinuity, rapid decisions under uncertainty. Blaming a single variable is an error, and a golden opportunity for power. Why? Because as long as camps fight over the cause, no one looks at the interaction of causes. Confusion is not only a side effect, it is a political firewall. Pirate First does not choose a culprit. He maps a multifactorial storm and refuses to transform complexity into slogan. 12. What was really normalized between 2020 and 2024? It's not vaccines. It's not fear. It's not even constraint. What was normalized is permanent exception. Deciding quickly without debate. Suspending rights provisionally. Governing by urgency. Moralizing contestation. Postponing accountability to later. Exception has become a method of government. Not spectacular. Effective. And the most troubling thing is not that it was accepted. It's that it's still there, even as official urgency has dissipated. Pirate First observes this. Systems that taste exception have difficulty returning to the norm. Not by malevolence, by habituation to rapid power. Pirate First position. The post-pandemic disaster is not a unique health scandal. It is a silent reorganization of the relationship between the living and authority. Pirate First does not seek to return to before. Before was already fragile. He seeks to recognize the disruption, refuse simplistic causalities, and never treat exception as a natural state. He knows that danger is not the crisis. Danger is what remains after, when no one is looking anymore. The world has not collapsed. It has shifted. And only those who accept to navigate without nostalgia, without single culprit, and without manufactured urgency can still keep course. The swell is readable. Your turn to decide if you chart your exit or a counterroute. Axis 5, the final maneuver. Not a flight, an active withdrawal. The PF withdrawal protocol, as it can be understood without being recuperated. Strategic withdrawal. PF withdrawal protocol. Contemporary power loves action. It especially loves action it can measure, amplify, recuperate. Protesting, reacting, being indignant, clicking, signing, aligning against. Everything feeds something. Pirate First has learned a simple lesson. In a world saturated with narratives, the most subversive energy is the one we withdraw. 13. Why withdrawing is sometimes more subversive than acting. Acting has become predictable. Even dissidence has its formats, its hashtags, its recyclable heroes. Withdrawal, it bewilders. Withdrawing is not abandoning the real, taking refuge in indifference, declaring oneself above everything. Withdrawing is ceasing to feed narrative machines that transform every position into fuel. Power knows how to manage opposition. It knows how to classify it, demonize it, monetize it. What it manages poorly is absence of expected reaction, refusal to enter the game, the signal that doesn't amplify. Pirate First does not disappear. He withdraws his emotional charge from the circuit. 14. Not participating is not being passive. Passivity is undergone. Strategic withdrawal is chosen. There is a radical difference between imposed silence and sovereign silence. The first is a defeat. The second is a position. Not participating is not commenting on what seeks indignation, not pronouncing when the question is trapped, not validating a frame by responding to it. It is a form of minimal but rare intelligence. Not responding to what was only designed to make you respond. Pirate First knows that every word is a transaction, and sometimes the best negotiation is to leave the table. 15. The elegance of non-alignment. The world loves camps. They simplify, they reassure, they mobilize, but they enclose. Pirate First chooses a more uncomfortable posture. Elegant non-alignment. Neither spectacular, theatrical, exhausting dissidence, nor shameful, internalized, rationalized obedience. Non-alignment does not shout. It persists. It adopts its own rhythms, chooses its battles, refuses turnkey political identities. It's a fine line. It demands more discipline than courage, but it offers something rare, freedom of movement. Pirate First position. The PF withdrawal protocol is not a doctrine. It is mental hygiene. Knowing when to be silent, withdraw. Not out of fear, by energetic lucidity. Pirate First does not seek to win the debate. He seeks not to be absorbed. In a world where everything wants your attention, your reaction, your alignment, strategic withdrawal becomes an act of silent sovereignty. Not feeding the machine. Not becoming an exploitable signal. Staying mobile. Withdrawal is not the end of the journey. It is the maneuver that allows continuing to navigate when others turn in circles. The protocol is laid down. The sea is open. Axis 6, the horizon line, where MXTM ceases to be a chronicle of the present to become a temporal compass. MXTM long-term vision, when seeing clearly, becomes a strategic competence. The future will not be decided by those who are right. It will be decided by those who automate their errors first. AI is not a new mind. It is an accelerated legacy of our categories, of our blind spots, of our polite blindnesses. Pirate First looks ahead, not to predict but to avoid confusing power and clairvoyance. 16. When AI will inherit our blind spots. AI learns on data, and data are traces of past decisions. Each unrecognized blind spot becomes an implicit rule, a reproducible bias, a scalable injustice. Automating a poorly understood system is not innovating. It is freezing error in silicon. Models don't see what has never been measured. They optimize what has been defined as success. They reproduce what has been normalized, even if it was an exception. The crime is not spectacular. It is slow. It occurs when provisional categories become permanent, emergency decisions become standards, absences of data become absences of rights. Pirate First does not fear AI. He fears the conceptual laziness of those who deploy it without having settled the past. 17. Pirate First facing cognitive empires. The power of the 21st century no longer governs only territories. It governs minds at distance. 3 empires overlap. States who want to predict, prevent, stabilize. Platforms who want to capture, guide, monetize attention. Algorithmic philanthropy, who wants to correct the world without ever asking its opinion. All speak the language of common good. All use models. All claim to know what is better, sooner than the living concerned. Pirate First does not fight these empires. He avoids their gravity. He knows that the issue is not brutal domination but cognitive preemption, thinking in your place before you even formulate the question. True sovereignty here is not political. It is epistemic. 18. What seeing clearly means in a world saturated with signals. Seeing clearly is no longer a question of information. We have too much. Seeing clearly today is knowing what doesn't deserve attention, what seeks a reaction rather than understanding, what simplifies to capture. The rarest competence of the decade is neither technical nor moral. It is the capacity to maintain stable perception in an unstable environment. Seeing clearly is tolerating ambiguity without collapsing, resisting total narratives, accepting not to conclude too quickly. It is a discipline, not a talent. Pirate First does not seek ultimate truth. He seeks a quality of attention that nothing can steal from him. Pirate First position, MXTM horizon. The future will not be saved by more intelligence. It will be saved or lost by the quality of what we choose to automate. MXTM does not promise a better world. It proposes lasting vigilance. Pirate First advances with a simple rule. Never delegate to a machine what we have not yet understood in humans. Seeing clearly tomorrow will not be popular. It will not be profitable. It will not be rewarded. But it will be the only way to remain sovereign in a world that thinks too fast for us. Implicit epilogue. Axes 1 to 6 do not form an ideology. They state a navigation attitude. See the traps. Read data without submitting to them. Refuse anesthetizing narratives. Withdraw when necessary. And look at the future without asking its permission to exist. MXTM is not an alarm. It is an instrument panel. And Pirate First does not seek to convince. He elucidates passages for those who already know that the sea has changed. The sextant is set. Your turn to decide when to change course. I found long ago already. My guiding star, will you find yours in time? #Pirate First. Thank you for reading MXTM's newsletter. PayPal.me/Martin Chartrand to financially support my work. Substack note. Seeing without forgiving is not a manifesto of anger. It is a navigation manual. In the era of systems that know too well, truth is no longer hidden. It is delayed, smoothed, rendered harmless. Consent is no longer extorted. It is designed. Morality is no longer a safeguard. It becomes an interface. This text maps the traps without seeking reconciliation. It explores cognitive sovereignty, statistical blind spots, and strategic withdrawal as an act of lucidity, not flight. No call to action. No promise of salvation. Only a discipline. Seeing clearly without asking forgiveness. Pirate First MXTM's newsletter. Post short. Seeing without forgiving. Truth is no longer hidden. It is delivered too late. Consent is UX. Morality and interface. Cognitive sovereignty or soft capture. One must choose.